Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Not just a fleeting glance from a stranger, but a constant, unnerving presence just at the edge of your senses? That's how it started for me, a week ago. I live alone in a rambling old house inherited from my grandmother. It's the kind of place with creaky floorboards and windows that rattle in the wind, a house with a history whispered in its walls. At first, I dismissed it as just the house settling, or my own overactive imagination. A shadow in my peripheral vision, a floorboard groaning upstairs when I was downstairs. Little things, easy to explain away. Then came the photographs. I'm a freelance photographer, so my house is filled with my work. Mostly landscapes, stark and empty places I find beautiful. One morning, I was editing a recent shoot, and I noticed something. In the corner of a photo of a desolate, windswept field, there was a figure. It was blurry, indistinct, like a smudge on the lens. I didn't remember anyone being there. I checked my other shots from that day. There it was again, in a different spot, always partially obscured, always just watching. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a smudge. This was deliberate. I tried to rationalize it. A trick of the light, a technical glitch. But the feeling of being watched only intensified. I started locking my doors meticulously, checking and rechecking them. I'd be working in my office and hear a soft tapping on the window, but when I'd whip around, there was nothing but the swaying branches of the old oak tree. The nights were the worst. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I'd lie awake, listening to every groan of the house, my heart pounding in my chest, convinced someone was just outside my bedroom door. One night, I was startled awake by a sound. It wasn't the usual creak or groan. It was a click. The distinct sound of a camera shutter. It came from downstairs, from my darkroom. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming at me to stay put. But a terrifying curiosity, a need to know, propelled me out of bed. I crept down the stairs, my bare feet silent on the cold wood. The door to my darkroom was slightly ajar, a sliver of deep red light spilling into the hallway. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I never leave the darkroom light on. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I pushed the door open. The room was empty. The faint, chemical smell of developing fluid hung in the air. Everything was in its place, my equipment neatly arranged. But on the developing line, hanging from a single clip, was a freshly developed photograph, still dripping. I moved closer, my hand trembling as I reached for it. It was a picture of me, sleeping, taken just moments ago, from the foot of my bed. And in the corner of the room, barely visible in the shadows of the photograph, stood a tall, slender figure, its face a pale, featureless blur. I dropped the photo as if it had burned my hand and stumbled back, a scream caught in my throat. I ran. I didn't grab anything, not my phone, not my keys. I just bolted out the front door and into the cold night, not stopping until the streetlights of the main road felt like a safe haven. I didn't know who it was or what it wanted, but I knew I could never go back to that house. It wasn't my house anymore. It was theirs. For days, I stayed with a friend, trying to explain what had happened, but the words sounded insane even to my own ears. A ghost in the photos? A photographer phantom. They tried to be supportive, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. They suggested stress, exhaustion. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was losing my mind. Desperate for answers, for proof that I wasn't crazy, I did something incredibly stupid. I decided to go back. Just for my cameras, my portfolio. The evidence. I went during the day, hoping sunlight would be my shield. The house was silent, eerily so. It felt colder inside than it was outside. I moved quickly, my bag in hand, heading straight for my office. My cameras were there, just as I'd left them. As I packed them away, my eyes fell on a stack of photo paper on my desk. On the top sheet was a single, perfect print. It wasn't one of mine. It was a black and white portrait of my grandmother, standing on the front porch of this very house. She was smiling, but her eyes held a profound sadness. And behind her, barely visible in the reflection of the window, was the same tall, blurry figure. My grandmother had never mentioned anything. She always said she loved this old house. Was she hiding something? Was this why she seemed so sad in her later years? I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. This thing, whatever it was, it had been here a long time. It was part of the house. I had to get out. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave, but the door to the office slammed shut. The lock clicked. I was trapped. Panic set in. I rattled the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Then I heard it again. That soft, insidious click of a camera shutter. It was coming from inside the room with me. I spun around, my back pressed against the door. The room was empty, yet the clicking continued, closer now. Click, 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 like a countdown. My eyes darted around the room, searching for the source. Then I saw it. On the wall opposite me, where there was only a blank space before, a new photograph was hanging. It was of me, right now, my face pale with terror, pressed against the door. Another click echoed in the silence. A new photo appeared next to the first. Another of me, this one from a slightly different angle. It was documenting my fear. My breath hitched. The clicks grew faster, more frantic. Photos began appearing all over the walls, one after another, covering the wallpaper like a grotesque collage. Each one a perfect, high-definition shot of my unfolding nightmare. My desperate attempts to open the door, my tears, my screams. It was capturing my soul, frame by frame. I sank to the floor, covering my head, the incessant clicking a tormenting soundtrack to my breakdown. I don't know how long I was there. Hours? A day? The light outside the window faded to black. The clicking finally stopped. A heavy silence descended, more terrifying than the noise. I slowly lifted my head. The walls were now completely covered in photographs, a floor-to-ceiling mosaic of my terror. In the very center, where my desk used to be, stood the figure. It was no longer blurry. It was sharp, in focus, tall and skeletal, draped in shadow, holding a vintage camera. And its face, it had no face. Just a smooth, pale surface, like an unexposed photograph. It raised its camera, pointing the lens directly at me. I saw a faint red light flicker from within the lens. I knew this would be the last picture. A final, perfect portrait of fear. I closed my eyes and waited for the flash.